All right, so a few of you have mentioned, and I've also noticed in class today, that some of you sort of started off with a little too little clay, or you had a shape that you needed to build this in a few parts. So I'm going to actually show you in this video how to actually attach more clay. If your clay is really wet and it's like still really squishy, in all honesty, you can just kind of press clay onto the surface, just sort of going from the inside and pressing in and then smoothing over the back. If you want to do it in a little sort of stronger way, what you can do is take your pen tool. You can mark up the surface. So this is what is called scoring. Because my clay is so wet, I am not going to add water. If some of you did ceramics in K-12, you'd been told about scoring and adding slip, which is basically kind of adding water or adding some clay that's mixed with a lot of water to the surface. With really wet clay, I don't find it necessary to add the water, but the scoring of it does actually help. If your clay is a little drier, not so dry that you can't bend and mold it, because if you're trying to attach things at that point, it's too far gone. The water doesn't really help at this stage when things are so wet, and if anything, it will make it more difficult to work with. So what I've done is you could work with thin coils, kind of like this, but well, that's going to take a while. So what I tend to do is I work with thick coils, so it's almost like a slab or a small slab, but it's basically a flat piece of clay, but I attach it sort of similar to how I would attach a coil as if I was making a coil vessel. But this lets me build up surface area really quick. This is also a good way to sort of change the direction of your piece. So I just attached this on the top, but if I knew I wanted to move this inward, I could just attach this so it's automatically leaning further in. And I'm going to make sure I attach it really well on both the interior and exterior. Option 2, I'll show you another means you can do to kind of change the direction of it. So, because this really is designed to be straight up and down. Well, and then you just do that all the way around and then let it dry a little bit. You can add more. And this actually lets you build a lot faster and more efficiently. Because if any of you remember doing small coil vessels, with really little coils, that can take a long time, and you don't want to be doing that right now. So I recommend doing larger coils or small slabs, but I don't recommend making them thicker than 2 inches tall, because then you do run into problems. Okay, so I attached this so it's basically going straight up and down. Well, what if I decide that I actually need this to come in a little bit? Like if you need to move it out, you can just kind of press it out, and that's no big deal. Well, if I need this to actually come in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dart. So I'm going to cut out a little V. So if you've ever done anything with fabric and sewing, a lot of things like trousers and skirts and things like that, there's a lot of darts in order to get the fabric to shape the way you want it to. So what happens is I've cut out this V. I'm going to score this, and I'm going to press it together. And notice how that completely changes the direction of this. It creates an automatic inward motion. Because I've actually removed material, so it has to actually arc in. Because you need less material at the top here than I would at this wider part. So by removing that material, it sort of cinches the piece in. You can kind of do this to sort of corral pieces that have gotten a little too wide back, but it's not 100% guaranteed to work. And then from here, I could just keep adding until I'm where I'm at. I could also add, like, say I need to go back out, I could add more pieces, just following the curve, adding it piece by piece as I need to. But it's fairly straightforward to add more material. But again, if you are at, say, this stage where you can't bend the material at all anymore, you cannot attach things anymore. And so make sure you keep your pieces damp enough to work on them until you have all of your material on it, because you don't want to get to a point where your piece is too dry and you have to then alter your decision in order of what you're making and its design, or you have to start over. You really don't want to have to start over. Sometimes you can alter the design and it will work okay, but not all of the time. Ideally, you stick with a plan and sort of finish that out.